Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Practical Pet Chat. Laura, I think this one came in and you were super excited. I'm not going to take it too personal, but today we're going to talk about chunky monkeys, which is not just me after the holidays. This is taking a look at our pets again with maybe a little bit closer eye.
Yeah, it's all of us, right? After the holidays. So it, this is always a touchy subject with people. It's so interesting when you want to help somebody get their dog's body composition more aligned to what is healthy, that they almost take it personally themselves. Like
Well, they
like
are often the root cause, let's be honest.
no, they are the root cause because
Yeah.
dogs aren't feeding themselves, right? They've got humans feeding them. But the problem is you have to really look at a number of factors. The body composition of a healthy dog, there's a number of ways, and it's everywhere on the internet, but there's a number of ways that you can gauge where your dog's body composition should be. And it's not just whether or not they have a waistline, but where
Or the
there
tuck.
is, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I would have clients whose dogs I would put on a little bit of a weight loss plan, and as soon as they got that tuck, they would come in elated. Okay, we're done, yay! And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, we're not. And I'd reach around, and there'd be a big, pile of hefty uh, fat around the chest. And I'd be like, yeah, we got to get that part off too, because like humans, every dog loses it, gains it in different places. And the body composition is different from dog to dog on what's
Yeah.
ideal.
So I'm
I
glad you
mean,
called that out because,
yeah, because you're not, I have seen some unbelievably impressive round dogs that are naturally by their breed, like English bulldogs. They tend to be a round dog. And yet, when you see one where the body composition is lined up perfectly, it's something to see. It's beautiful. And you can just see it in how the dog feels. So people have a million excuses for why they have chunky monkeys, including well, they're just well loved, and it's like, no, no, it's tough love is more important. And oh, they're fluffy, and like, no, they're not fluffy. Short-haired dogs are not fluffy. And you name it, I've heard it. And then the excuses of, well, it's my other spouse, the other spouse, the husband or the wife or whatever. Not them. They don't do it. It's the other spouse, or it's the kids in the house, or. And it's like, okay, I listened to all of that, and then I'm like, all right, back to what we were initially talking about. Let's put a plan together on how we're going to change this because dogs and cats age at a faster rate than we do, substantially faster rate than we do. And so where you might have whatever you weighed at 30, you know, um, by the time you're 40 is not necessarily going to be profoundly different depending on your lifestyle. Think about that for a dog. They don't have that 10 years of grace period or, even 5 years or even 2 years. They're changing quickly. So you need to really look at a number of factors, including what they're eating, the formulation of what they're eating, what it's comprised of, what that recipe is made up of. Is it heavy in carbs? Is it a carb form? Is it, the biggest mistake I see people make is they reduce so much of the food that the animal is starving and isn't getting nutrients, but got to lose that weight. And it's like, gosh, there are other ways that we could do this to not starve your kid, still get everything that the kid needs, and do this on a pace that is healthy and in the best interest of the animal. But until you can, until people are willing to be shown what how to look at their dogs and what a good composition looks like and that it's not starving, I think most people would be shocked at what I think is a good body composition for most dogs because they're like, that's skinny. Like, nope, not skinny. Can't count the ribs. not seeing emaciated kids here. We're just seeing a nice, lean, muscly, well formed kid that's getting the right nutrients and calories for what they do and who they are and the kind of breed that they are, and the level of activity and their age. And it changes, right? That rapid aging, that changes that too. And teaching people how to look at that. The best thing that ever happened in my store were the number of times that I would focus on changing someone's animal's body composition. And at the end of that, even a year or two later, them coming in and saying, I get it. And now I'm starting on me.
I'm so glad because that's where I was going to go with this as well.
Hmm.
Is think about how much better you feel
Yep.
when you lose just a little bit of weight. Now take that down to a because people will feel like, oh my gosh, that's going to be too much. I like that you said that's too much for them to have to lose,
Hmm.
and no one's saying they got to lose that in a week.
Right.
That is not the goal here. Much like yourself, like I love that you said, let's have a plan. How are we going to do this? How are we going to get there? And I think to kind of dovetail on what you're saying here is I also love when people do it not just with diet. I like when it's a combination of things
Hmm.
because it does impact their health. And I've had this myself where I'm trying to get Belle, sorry Belle, back into shape. Which, by the way, in case if any of you are wondering why Belle doesn't come on camera, I don't want to say Lauren has given her a complex now, but
There's
it's all
no
my
such
fault.
thing.
But when I want to do more than just the diet, I take I get more involved. My wife, the kids, we're out there walking, and it's so funny because I think I shared one of the changes I saw happening in me last year was I wasn't getting outside as much because I was so busy with work that by the time I had to really get out for a half hour, an hour, it was not peak sunshine hours. So I'm not getting the vitamin D, all the rest of that. So I made it a point for several weeks to just, I'm going to take my 10, 15 minutes and just get outside, sit outside with Bella, throw the ball, play with her, just be in her presence. And that alone was amazing. But also getting the sunshine, getting all that. Extrapolate that down, right? I'm a big human being. I got this beautiful being that's what not even a third, maybe a fourth of me in terms of size and shape and all of that. That benefit is so exponentially powerful for them. And I like that you said it doesn't have to be just one pathway to get there. In fact, it's that combination that I really think is the most beneficial. Um, and that's when folks will say, well, how can I avoid these issues? And I sometimes you can't because it's genetics, but you can certainly slow down those things from happening by having the proper weight on your animal. And you can also, in reverse, you can exacerbate and expedite when those things are impacting them because of the weight. And I think that's
Well,
where you and I get the sadness part of it is like, ooh, that could have been avoided. We got to do something.
well, I mean, when you look at it, just from a stand aside, step back and look at it, they're not feeding themselves. I wish someone controlled what I ate. You know,
I don't, but okay.
I do. I wish somebody would say, no, no, you can't have any more. That's it. You can't have that because it would be like, oh, all right, well, that'll work, but
That is not the Lauren I know, but okay.
no, no,
I
but it's a
think
nice fantasy.
otherwise you would be willing to come to my house and eat.
No, I'm never
Because
coming
I'm
to your
more than
house to
happy to
eat.
tell you.
No,
Here's your
but
cricket dessert.
But what I mean is that yeah, it's just that, I'm not a big sweet eater, but there are people that, when you say to them, wouldn't it be great if you just couldn't open the refrigerator door, if you couldn't
Sure.
buy the carrot cake and the things like that. Just because it says carrot cake doesn't mean it's healthy, you guys. Um, so, we are in control of a lot of that, and it is a tough love thing. And it's a tough love thing, not so much for the animal as it is for yourself, because
Yeah.
you're the one that's tortured in your head that you think you're being mean and they're looking at you with the sad eyes. I think that you just need to realize how much, and when you see it, when you see that they feel better, when you see that they're more limber and they're moving, without any exhaustion, it just that will be the reward right there.
Yeah.
But you have, and everybody in the house has to be on the program. You have to, if you have a lot of people in the house, everybody has to be involved in understanding and making sure that they get that, if you want your kid to be with you for as long as possible and have a great quality of life, this is something we need to focus on.
Yeah. It's so funny because my youngest is probably screaming in a different multiverse right now, going, "See, Dad," because she's always if she sees me with a treat in hand, is what number treat is that today, Dad?
I love her.
I'm like, okay, gosh, and Bella, needlessly is like, that kid is really gonna find something special in her shoe later. But yeah, it is so important, as you point out. It is not typically one person in the family, and then it's just compounded and compounded and compounded.
Right.
Um, and it's so funny too because so many folks will share with me their stories of like, oh my gosh, we triple fed. I got this call not too long ago. We triple fed the dog because none of us, we all got going with our days and we weren't sure if the dog had been fed. And one look at the dog and it was clear the dog hadn't been fed. And I'm like, oh no, that's just one of their many manipulative looks. They haven't been fed yet. And I always call it Bell's model mode of like, I haven't been fed. Please. And I'm just like,
Does she does she suck her cheeks in?
oh my
I
gosh,
would love
yeah,
that.
she's
Let's
just
get that on
I have a
film.
different term. I won't use it here because the audio and
Oh,
video get flagged. But I'm just like, wow, I literally am the one who
oh,
just fed
that's
you an hour
hilarious.
ago. You are fine. But it's the same thing too. It's one of those things where, and thankfully she doesn't do it to our guests. But if I sit down to eat a meal, now long story as to why she sits next to me on the bench at our table, but she'll sit at the bench and she'll just sit there, watch TV, hang out with me. And I always know she's going for the food when she doesn't get up on the bench and instead puts her head on my lap or knee, like, I'm here in case you need to drop something. It's okay. You don't have to eat everything on your plate, Dad.
So how sad is it that the most malleable people ever in your house should be the guests, not the main person to the dog?
Well, and I am like, but so to that point, I do communicate to the guests that we have over, and you and I have talked about this when you're having, especially the holiday parties and or the summertime where people, have a tendency to put things within reach of our animals. So my guests are pretty well trained in terms of.
Yes, but you're not. So
Oh no,
clearly
I'm
she knows
horrible.
who to
I'm
word.
horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Uh, yeah, darn it, Belle. Maybe I'm not your favorite for the reasons I think I am. That's probably going to require 3 or 4 psychotherapy episodes coming up. But on that note, listen, it's an ebb and flow, right? There are going to be times. I've got a good friend who just had a baby who called me. It was like, literally, the dog is going to weigh 1,000 pounds if I don't. And I'm like, all right, here's what you do when you feed the baby. Dog goes in the other room
Right.
because the baby also thinks it's funny to throw the things down. And the dog's like, I got you covered. I got you covered. We're a team. So he's like, oh, yeah. But then the dog whines. And I'm like, so that's the time for one of you to feed the baby and one of you to take the dog for a
To
walk,
feed, right.
you
Or to
know,
feed the dog.
or to
Yeah.
feed the dog. Yeah. There are ways we get that. And as you've seen throughout this episode, I am as guilty as any of you out there. But
Rob
that
is the
being said,
problem.
I
He's always the
do.
problem.
Yeah, but wow. Yeah, send those emails to the email address up above. But that being said, we get it. We just want to check in with you as well, just like you should be doing, or a responsible family member should be doing to say, hey, let's take a moment here. Let's make sure we're on track because at the end of the day, that weight has such a tremendous impact on their body, on their mental health, on all of it. So please, it's been a fun episode, but let's do the right thing by these amazing, beloved animals. And Lauren, thank you as always.
It was fun.
It was fun. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as, nor should it be construed as, professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment for your pets. Always seek the advice of a qualified veterinarian with any questions you may have regarding your pet's health or medical condition. Never disregard professional veterinary advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The hosts and the guests of this podcast are not liable for any actions taken based on the information shared during these episodes. Any reliance on the information provided is solely at your own risk. Copyright 2026 Practical Pet Chat. All rights reserved. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or reproduction of any content from this podcast, including but not limited to audio, scripts, and show notes, is prohibited without prior written consent. The opinions and views expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Practical Pet Chat.